listened to a video by a lady who called The Rosy Life, and I like the way she also talks about and breaks down Neville Goddard's teachings and makes them a bit more digestible, and so her perspectiving is really good. It's raining here, of course, so if my internet goes in and out, that's why. So I wanted to touch upon what I've been doing. I'm with a partner who is on the autism spectrum. What would have been known as high-functioning Asperger's is now labeled as ASD1. And that part really threw me for a loop when a lot of his traits of how he deals with anxiety and things like that started to come up. And there has been a lot of personal confusion at times for me, being in a relationship with someone like him, because it's a very complex relationship at times. In essence, I have often wondered why, when we talk about Neville Goddard's teachings about everyone is your mirror or everyone is you pushed out, and I've often asked myself, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is this? Why is this happening? Why can't things just be easy and feel good? Why is there this sense of constant, chronic resistance and miscommunication and all these things? But I get more and more clear that I'm in a relationship with someone that I love, who is helping me. Well, really, if I want to stay with this person, I really don't have a choice but to go within myself to find more about what it is that I want and to give that to myself, because, and that especially emotionally, when it comes to feelings and emotions and connection in that way, that is something that it's really hard for him to reciprocate. And so I used to feel really kind of sad and angry at how he would respond or react when I was just wanting to communicate. And when Neville Goddard says, stop looking at what is and focus on what it is that you want and then give that to yourself, I've had to do that, because if I don't, I won't get what I want and how I want to feel inside of myself. I will constantly be focused on what it is that I'm lacking, or a perceived lack in my interactions with my partner. And if you know anything about anybody who is on the autism scale or has ASD1, they are wonderful people. They have a lot of strengths and gifts. We all do. But one thing that they're really good at is not really communicating their own inner feelings about things. Maybe because many of them, they don't know how to. They have feelings, they just don't know how to necessarily aware of things that I might be really attuned to, and vice versa. Things that my husband is hyper aware of, I'm not always quite as vigilantly aware of it. He has special interests that I don't have. But all of that to say, I've been learning that when he does or behaves in a way that I perceive as hurtful or careless or thoughtless, that is an opportunity for me to not focus on that, but to focus on what it is that I'm trying to give to myself. What is it that I'm, in that instance or situation, what is it that I'm focusing on and trying to get from outside of myself? Because I know that when I'm really kind of in the flow and focused on me, there's not a whole lot that bothers me in the outside world. And everything does seem to just kind of fall into place effortlessly without me even doing anything about it. Like, I don't have to push to make it happen. But if I take something personally, then I can get really out of whack on how I'm feeling. I can become emotionally dysregulated, meaning I don't always feel like I am in control of how I'm feeling if I'm feeling emotionally dysregulated. And that ties in with your nervous system. If you've been in a chronic situation where you're constantly feeling hurt, upset, angry, confused, that, anything can trigger that trauma, other things outside of yourself that just continue and you don't understand it, you don't know why. It can, cause you to feel like emotionally it's like a turmoil. It's inside of you, and you can tell yourself mentally, I shouldn't feel this way, I need to relax, but if at the same time the state that you're inhabiting is one of intense emotion that is unwanted, right? Like, you're hurt, you're angry, you're upset, and nothing you say is getting through to the person outside of you, or nothing that you can think of to do is can outwardly change the situation through outward action. If you don't understand, which I didn't for the longest time, until I found these teachings, then I did start going within myself and inquiring within. Why, it isn't even so much as why is this thing in the outside of me happening, the unwanted. It was more like inquiring as to why I continued to look outside of myself for stability, for affirmation, for any kind of understanding, because there's no real need to look outside of myself for anything that will help me stabilize my own emotional state. The emotional state stabilizes when I go within and I affirm to myself, my inner being inhabits the state of calm, inhabits the state of inhabiting the state of allowing, it's really hard to be in that same breath in a state of resistance. You can breathe out and be in a state of resistance. You can breathe in a state of allowing. So what that means to me is there's an opportunity between breath to choose the state that I'm inhabiting. And when I do that, I find a sense of peace and balance that I don't experience if I look to someone else to soothe me or agree with me or communicate with me in ways that I thought I needed to be able to feel good and to be happy. I've discovered, and in part it's sanity. I have discovered a sense of sanity in my ability to go within and really focus on myself and give myself what I want, because by doing that, there is nothing hard about that. What's hard is you can't control other people, or oftentimes you cannot control outer situations. And when that's the case, you can begin to feel a bit, uneasy or powerless, or just in general, you can just feel really confused and unstable by that. And I think that I'm a person who I'm very high in agreeableness, meaning I want people around me to feel good and to and I want to get along. I don't personally want there to be active conflict. What I have since learned is that the only conflict that is active is the conflict within me that I give to myself, that I focus on, that I give energy to. Even if I don't mean to do that, even if I'm not really even actively trying to do that, it comes out in my interactions with what I'm experiencing in this world, because this world is a mirror, and it is, it is a challenge to be like, I've had days where I have just, had an interaction and I just think, what the fuck am I doing? Why do I keep putting myself through this? What is the point of this? And why am I taking all the blame and the responsibility for this shit when it can't all be me? Because that's outer world speak. That's what people say with other people when they are talking about their construct of reality. But when you are following these teachings and you're applying these laws to your own life, it is paramount that I take responsibility for everything that is happening to me in this world. And if I don't like something, I'm the only one that can do anything about it, but it's not going to be by communicating what I don't like to someone in the outer world. I have found that it is far more effective to just go within myself and give myself the version of the interaction that I do want, and to then to let go whatever the appearance that I experienced, whatever that was, to let that go. And I know on one hand it feels like, well, you're just letting this other person off the hook to be a jerk, to treat you badly, to blah blah blah, whatever it is. But I've found that the more I give myself what I want, the version that I want, the more that this outer world reconfigures itself to meet me in that new construct of what it is that I desire. And the hardest part for me personally, that I have identified as the hardest part, is to not join someone else in their narrative of reality, and to lose myself in an emotional, dysregulated experience where I feel powerless, or I feel a lot of strong emotion, and the emotion feels so strong and so immediate, like that I have to do something about it, or if there's nothing I can do about it, then I just sit and I stew in the most unpleasant states surrounding whatever that perceived experience was, and that amplifies the unwanted back at me. It just amplifies it. And that's why if sometimes it feels like we're stuck, or like we are in a situation or having chronic, experience that we just can't seem to shake, even if we're trying to do all the things, it is incremental. I have days where I'm just on top of the world. I feel absolutely amazing, like everything is really right in the world, and I could just be going along feeling really wonderful like that, and then have an interaction with someone and it just feels like an emotional grenade has gone off in my own ability to feel good. And that's when I abandon myself. That's when I've talked about, when things like that happen, it's easy to abandon yourself and run over across the line and join in with everything that's unwanted. And the moment that happens, there's one thing for sure that you can be certain of, and that is that you will suffer. You will be miserable. You will drag your own self down into whatever special level of hell that feels like. Maybe several levels of hell, I don't know. It can feel really hard and intense when you abandon yourself and you join in anything that's unwanted, and that can really weigh on you. It has, to me, been one of the main motivating factors of not giving up and not giving in to other versions of reality that I've already sampled and did not feel any interest in living that way. But I do, from time to time, I do get sucked into participating in the unwanted. However, I recognize every time, especially when I come out of it, I recognize that I'm responsible for that state that I entered into, because there's always these little hair, like a split second, just a hair's breadth of a moment that I could not go down that road and join in with what's unwanted and unravel in that narrative. That I can choose myself instead, and then when I do that, I am the emotionally stable, I'm having an emotionally stable response. And it's a sane response, because I don't have to abandon myself to join in any narrative that doesn't feel good to me. And the more you practice doing that, and the more I've been practicing doing this, I find that a lot of the chronic interactions or experiences that were unwanted by me, they happen less and less, a lot less frequently, and not to the same degree as they used to, that is for certain. And so I am a big believer of not throwing people or relationships away, because when you understand how these teachings work, you realize you don't have to be that extreme. Now, I'm not saying if somebody is physically abusing you, you should stay with them. I'm not saying things like that, because I wouldn't stay with anybody who was physically hurting me on purpose, doing something terrible like that. But what I am saying is that the more I give myself exactly what it is that I want to experience in the outer world, and I don't abandon myself in old narratives. That's what Neville means when he says let the old man die. You just gotta stop joining in those old narratives, because those are old states. Those states will die, they'll crumble, they'll dissolve when you stop activating them. And you, if you think about it, a lot of times it's your feeling that kind of drives, it's the fuel that drives you into whatever state you find yourself. It's a big part of it. And so if you get offended easily, if you take someone else's opinion more seriously than you take your own, that can really cause you to abandon yourself and to join into a narrative that is unwanted. And everyone is playing a part in this world, so they're all mirroring back to you what you're giving to yourself. And at some point, you just get better and better at giving yourself what you want, and everything reshuffles and lines up with that and reflects that back to you. And that's when life gets better, simpler, easier, more in the flow, a whole lot less resistance and conflict. Or you can abandon yourself, join in the narrative of everything unwanted, and you can just spin and spin and spin yourself into a state of misery, and you can be oblivious to your own power and your own ability to save yourself. And so I'm with a partner who, if I had been in a more traditional kind of relationship with someone who, would have been able to, communicate in different ways that that most people tend to want, I would have missed out on me being able to go within and learning more about me and finding out exactly what it is that I want, because in my past I would be very focused on the other, and I would have been sure, I would have been doing things that I wanted to do too, but I'm one of those people, what do you want to do? What can we do together? It's just like, and that's fine, but there is something to be said for being with a partner who really doesn't give you any wiggle room to wiggle away from having a relationship with your own self. And that's one thing that I've been cultivating, is just in my day-to-day life, focusing on myself and what it is that I want, and in my own spiritual life, going within, giving myself what it is that I want, using these tools that we learn through the people that we watch who talk about Neville Goddard, or the law of assumption, or the law of attraction, or whatever it is that you're watching. You're going to get something out of it that's helping you really just get back to yourself. It's not that you need it, but I don't know how I would have gotten back to myself in a way that has been as fulfilling as this has been, and despite the times when I forget and I get distracted and I give my power away, and I still I do that, and I'm still learning to just keep coming back to myself and to appreciate my partner for the ways that I have grown just because I'm with him, and he is who he is, and I don't have to change him or try to be conditional with him to get my needs met. And I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships, is we get frustrated and confused and upset because the other person isn't acting the way we think they should, or doing the things that we think they should, or behaving, in ways towards us the way we think they should. And this happens in all relationships, no matter what the mix is, no matter, if a person is on the autistic scale or not, or whether they have, it's a big smorgasbord of different mixes when it comes to people and relationships. But this particular partnership that I'm in has given me a fast track to personal growth in a way that I would have never actively volunteered for in a lot of ways, because, you know, it's amazing the things that we will compromise or not give to ourselves because we're so busy focusing on the outer world and who's to blame for how we are feeling, or who's to blame for the way things are. And I'm really appreciative that I can see my life through a new set of lenses that help me understand I have all the power in my life, and that there's no one and nothing outside of me that I need to look to for empowerment or for approval or for even for love or happiness or joy. That it all comes from within me, and I'm just here cultivating my own inner beingness so that everything around me begins to flourish, and that begins reflecting back to me. And when I hit a patch of weeds, I can see that for what it is. If I see weeds in my garden, I don't get angry about it. I just recognize that those weeds are there, and they just want to grow and thrive too, but that it's easier for me to pull those weeds out and let them be compost on the floor, on the bed of my gardens, to feed and nourish the plants that I actually have planted there, the seeds that I have planted that I want to flourish and thrive. So I don't get mad at the weeds. The weeds are doing their job. They are a part of the entire system, you know, the little ecosystem of a garden. And they have their place and they have their purpose. But I don't have to get angry and, you know, feel like everything is ruined because there's some weeds growing. I just do the thing that I know I can do. And that's just continuing to focus on what it is that I want and how I have that power to give myself what I need. And I think that's a pretty powerful place to operate from. And since I've been doing that, or when I am not doing it and then I come back to doing it, it just gets stronger each time. I get more and more finessed with how and what I'm doing. And I get more and more, like really aware when I'm not doing it, when I'm not giving myself the narrative that I deserve, that I really desire. And so, yep, I just thought I would share that because it's been a while since I made a video, and now I'm going to go do some other things. But until then, Till we talk again, have a beautiful day, friend. Much love.